Okay, Bobby Kaufmann.
Thank you to the League for having me again. I'm Representative Bobby Kaufmann. I too would like to thank my opponent for his service and Kevin for his service in law enforcement. I actually know, like, and respect both of these gentlemen, so it's been a nice, positive campaign. The one thing I'm campaigning on is one simple word, and that is results. These past 3 years, my brother and I have door knocked on 15,000 doors plus. In this campaign cycle, we will have knocked on every single registered voter's door in my district. What that does is it allows me to have a good feel for what the folks want. And if you look at my record, it's something that I'm proud to stand on. You look at elder abuse, we were one of only 3 states that did not have a strong elder abuse law. I sat on that final conference committee with our Senator Bob Dvorsky, and this state now has an elder abuse law. And the heritage area agencies gave me the Legislator of the Year for that work. You look at today we had a pet protective order press conference, and I was able to work again with many Democrats and pass legislation that's aimed at curbing domestic violence and aimed at trying to prevent the torturing of pets. And for that work, I was able to receive the Friends of Dog Award. You look at REAP funding in the environment. I sat on the Ag Conference Committee that brought us $25 million for REAP. Unfortunately, the part of that was vetoed, of which I strongly did not support. And I was also proud to support a lot of water quality funding. On the source of education, I was among a group of Republicans who insisted on 4% allowable growth for our schools for 2015, supported our community colleges with a record one-time investment, and supported a record 2-year tuition freeze at the University of Iowa. So I say all this not to brag, but I say all this to show that we're able to deliver results. All this was done in split government. We're not Washington, D.C. I'm able to work with our local officials. I've co-sponsored a bill with every member of our House in the Johnson County Democratic delegation. And most importantly, we're able to do all of this while still balancing budgets, paying down our debt, and returning money to the taxpayer. So if there's one thing I want in this introduction, it's to show that as your legislator these last 2 years, I've been able to deliver results to you. I was one of only 3 Republicans that voted multiple times for 6% allowable growth. So we're both pretty good on the education issue. And I hope also, in all fairness, that while I'm condemning our current legislature for not passing allowable growth, I would hope that they would also join me in calling previous legislatures in Democratic control just as irresponsible for not passing this. This whole hot potato thing has got to stop. I'm a strong supporter of passing as much allowable growth as we can fiscally afford as soon as possible. It's a huge percentage of our budget. Let's get that out of the way the first year. I've been a strong vocal supporter of that. I've got the support of most of our local superintendents, and I will continue to be a strong pro-education legislator.
Now, we're obviously going to run into some pretty stiff competition from some of the big ag forces that are out there that are going to be fighting with that. But this is where you're going to have to look at the integrity of your state legislator. And one of the things that I always tell constituents is if they're confused about the way a legislator is voting on an issue that they think is a no-brainer, you need to go look at who's donating to their campaign, and that'll tell you a hell of a lot.
Thank you. Bobby Kaufmann.
I'm assuming Mr. Johnson's not questioning my integrity because my voting record on water quality initiatives is impeccable. I voted for record water quality funding. I voted for the $2.4 million nutrient reduction strategy. I supported record investments in this. So questioning my integrity and having this venue be the time to end this positive campaign, I think is a little tacky, David. But that being said, also demonizing big ag isn't going to help either. And big ag, the big boogeyman that David always refers to, were the leaders in pushing for these water quality initiatives. They were pushing for these new dollars. It absolutely needs to be voluntary. If you look at what happened with our funds, those funds that we put in for voluntary for nutrient reduction strategy, they were zapped up in days. And I strongly did not support Governor Branstad's veto of more of those water quality funds, and I would push strongly to restore those next year. So when it comes to my integrity as a whole and my integrity on water quality, I have an impeccable record that I'm proud to stand on.
Okay, next question.
The cynical part of me says that a lot of people in the legislature don't want to increase education. The funding for it, because they don't want a well-educated, well-informed voter. I mean, that's like the most cynical thing that I see. But it's more and more, I'm starting to believe that this is the case. So the answer is, again, we need to have a new majority in the House. We need to maintain the majority in the Senate. We got to get rid of this governor, and then we will see an increase into our education and the values that go with it.
Well, David, I do believe you get the most absurd quote of the year award. That's got to be the most ridiculous and offensive thing I've ever heard, and you're dead wrong. I know those folks you're talking about, and you're just not correct. I'd like to also put out a couple facts. The state of Iowa is one of only 2 states since the recession to increase education funding by over 10%. Us and North Dakota are the only 2 states who have increased education funding since the recession by 10%. That's with Governor Branstad in office, that's with the House Majority in office. Again, you can parrot talking points all day long. That's wonderful for your campaign, but it's not a reality. And the reality is that I'm not even sure the premise of the question is proper. Because in this state, we have had a record-breaking 2nd year in a row tuition freeze. We have frozen tuition. So to say that we're making it unaffordable is not legislatively accurate. So I'm just going to go back to my continued positive campaign and continue to support education. I will continue to support it when I'm reelected.
Well, the first thing we can do is look at the minimum wage. The amount that we have for minimum wage is obviously not a livable wage, right? I know that there's a push to push it up to 1010. That will never pass with the current legislature. That will never get signed by the current governor. So I would go ahead and push for a higher minimum wage. I would like to see it at about $15 an hour.
Okay, Mr. Kaufmann?
Well, David's advocating for change in leadership in the House of Representatives for not getting minimum wage passed. Would you too then also encourage a change in the Senate Democratic leadership? Because there were 3 minimum wage bills this year. 2 of them didn't even get a committee vote, and none of them got a floor vote. So in a Democratic Senate, you didn't even get a 10-10 minimum wage vote, so I'll be anxious to see if you're calling for that leadership change as well. Healthy food for all. And I don't think that the answer to every question lies in it's the Republicans' fault. I believe this district's pretty diverse. I believe this district is something that represents by everybody, and not every single issue can be solved by saying put Democrats in charge.
I refuse to take any corporate interest money at all, and there's a reason for that. One, when I get to Des Moines, I don't want any of these corporate interests to feel that they have any power or authority over the way I vote. But more importantly, I don't want any of my constituents to ever look at my vote and say, God, did this guy get any donations from Deere & Company or Monsanto? Is that why he voted that way? I don't want that to even be a question in your mind. So it's off the table for me. And I think if we start to make those demands of our legislators and senators in any party, we're going to be a lot better off. But 2 things have to happen, right? We have to have candidates that refuse to take it, but more importantly, we have to have voters that will step up and vote for those people. So that is probably one of the biggest differences there are between Bobby and myself. And it's not something that is personal, because I actually like Bobby Kaufmann as a human being. We just differ on this philosophy, and that's just the way it is in politics, right? So when you walk away tonight, I want you to go home and I want you to look at who donated to my campaign, and I want you to look at who donated to his campaign, and everybody else who's running. And just look at them and let that sink in for a bit. And thank you very much for attending tonight.
Thank you. And Bobby Kaufmann?
Well, I see we're doubling down on the questioning of my integrity yet again. And I am actually really glad that David asked you to view our reports, because I would actually strongly encourage you to look at your reports. For someone who's so sanctimonious on corporate donations, I'd like to say that I'm glad you don't accept them, David, because they're illegal. No one can accept corporate donations in the state. It's illegal. So I, too, do not accept corporate donations. As it comes to business interests donating to me, I'm proud of the fact that I have the support of businesses in our district, as do Bob Dvorsky, Bruce Braley, Jack Hatch. Are you planning on not voting for any of them? I'm guessing you are. But let's look at your report specifically. 43% of David's money comes from political parties. 20% comes from money outside of the district, 15% of that which is out of the state, and then 7% of his dollars come from special interests from the Democratic Party. So 70% of the funds of the guy who's running the campaign for the little people doesn't even come from the little people. My track record is clear. I've got hundreds upon hundreds of people in my district that donate to my campaign in increments of $25, $35, $45. I believe in my constituents. I believe in my district. I don't have to rely on non-stop party talking points. I represent everybody. My litmus test for a vote is simple. Does it make sense? Is it good for the district? If the answer to that is yes, I support it. If the answer to that is no, I have a track record. I'm happy to tell a political party, an interest group, or a lobbyist no. It's been the honor of a lifetime to be your state representative, and I humbly ask for your support on or before November 4th.